Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Shane Weltical with the Mandan Fire Department. I am the Battalion Chief, and today I'm here to visit with you a little bit about our Community Risk Reduction Project. So what is Community Risk Reduction? Community Risk Reduction is a tool that we can use in the fire service that allows us to identify certain risks or hazards or threats that we may find within our community. And not only can we identify those risks, we are able to take the steps to prioritize those risks. So what we do is we kind of evaluate everything, and then we decide, based on statistical data, what risk poses the greatest threat to our community, and so on and so forth down the list. Once we've identified those risks, we take the time to develop some strategies and some tactics in order to mitigate the risks that we've identified. And then what we do is we package that all with a nice bow into what we call a community risk reduction plan. And that's what we've done here today and what I'm here to present to you. We're here seeking your approval to implement this plan and go from there. So what drove us to do a community risk assessment? This isn't something that has been around terribly long in the fire service, but it's kind of quickly becoming the new norm. Fire services traditionally took care of fire-related things, and then they moved into EMS, and then they moved into technical rescue, and so on and so forth, and now we've become what's called an all-hazards department. So when we do a community risk assessment, we go through and we look at every facet of the community, the capabilities of our department, our population makeup, and everything. So I brought a little bit of statistical information with to show you today. Just a sampling of what we use in our assessment. You'll see this is the city of Mandan's total population between 1910 and 2022. We've obviously, the trend is obviously going up. In fact, we've increased our population by 32% over the last 10 years since our last census. This screen here is some data we use. Basically, this is the outlay of our city. One thing to take note on here is you will notice right here in the center is Fire Station 1, and then down here you'll notice Fire Station 2. What we've identified in this risk is this area up here in the, excuse me, let me back up a little bit. This area in the northwest section of town, we don't have a fire station. And our response times are getting pretty long. So that's something that we've decided that we need to address here. Just a few more statistics, some race and origin, some age and sex statistics. Housing rates we look at our income and our poverty rate. We do have a relatively decent poverty rate compared to other places in the United States. We take into account living arrangements, we take into account geography, all sorts of different types of information. So after we've looked at all of that information, we start to look at the fire department, and we of course go by the guidelines set forth by the National Fire Protection Agency, or National Fire Protection Association. What they do is they set guidelines in which the fire department should strive to meet to provide the most adequate service that we can to the community. You'll notice on this particular screen that I have for you here, our compliance with those standards for both EMS and for firefighting is lacking quite a bit. Specifically to the northwest section of town where we've identified the risk. So you'll see that 28%, 7%, 3%, those are some really low numbers, and something that we've decided is posing a pretty significant risk to our community in the northwest section of town. We know that that area of town is driving development. We have scheduled 700 plus homes and numerous amount of commercial properties and some light industrial to go up in that area. So we do have a lot of growth going that way that we need to address. And you'll see that here on this slide. Typically we like to have a 1.5 mile radius, our response radius around our fire stations. You'll see here Fire Station 1 is only covering up to just on the north side of Interstate 94. So this area here is quite uncovered. It's approximately 5.5 miles from Fire Station 1 to the furthest reaches of our jurisdiction. And that's on that amount of time that it takes to travel that with traffic or weather or whatever it is, can greatly be affected. So that's a really long ways for a single engine company to travel. We've seen response times upwards of 14, 15, 16 minutes in this area. So that's quite concerning. And again, to go back and touch a little bit on the development that is being driven up there, we're going to see roughly 700 single-family homes. We're going to see a bunch of multifamily homes up there. If you recall, we had two large $5 million apiece losses of multifamily apartment buildings back to back in 2018 and 2019 in the northwest area of town. So we are obviously not immune to fire events in that area. So we also have the new high school that's coming in up in that area. We do expect there to be a significant amount of increased traffic, and with that comes a higher emergency rate. So in order to kind of quantify what kind of risk we have here, it's kind of tough to do because we have a pretty high percentage of our city that lives in that area. So when you look at the amount of people that live in that area, and then you take the amount of emergency incidents that we respond to, and you kind of look at those two things alone, you'll find that a majority of the incidents we respond to happen in the northwest section of town. Of course, some of that belongs to downtown northwest section, but a good 40% of them happen north of I-94. So are we potentially risking lives? Yes. Are we potentially risking property? Yes, absolutely. So it's something that we need to address. The community risk reduction program centers itself around the five E's: enforcement, engineering, education, emergency response, and economic incentives. Those are the five things that when we talk about adding a third fire station, we're going to kind of center everything that we do for that project around those five E's. So in another presentation, we'll take the time and we'll explain to you, how each of those E's fits in with this particular project. The main goal here with this project is to add a third fire station in the northwest area of town. Of course, coming with that, there is a lot of cost associated. We need another apparatus. We're going to need personnel to staff it. All things that we see as a hurdle, but not an impossible. So there will be some cost to it, but at the end of the day, when you assess risk benefit, we firmly believe that the benefit our citizens and our community will receive from adding a third fire station will greatly outweigh any cost that will be associated with the project. So we'll have more for you this at a later date. We hope to start kind of having the meeting process and breaking each individual component of this down with you. And I look forward to any questions that you may have. Thank you.